Welcome to The Plunge with Derek Holser. Today's episode in Tolkien's greatest character is none other than the king-to-be, Aragorn. Strider. What a guy, what a phenomenal hero figure he represents. Joining me today is Robert Hulett, a dear friend, a former student of mine, who has now become the master. It's the goal of every teacher to see their pupils exceed them, and after you listen to this conversation, I'm sure you'll come to the conclusion, as I have, that Robert has far surpassed whatever meager information and inspiration I provided him those many years ago. So without further ado, I thank you for joining us, and I'm grateful to Robert for being willing to take the plunge. Let's dive in. As we continue with our series on Tolkien's greatest characters, I am thrilled to have a good friend and actually a former student of mine, Robert Hulett, joining the conversation today. How's everything out your way, Robbie?
It's going well. Beautiful fall weather is rolling in, so love that. Newborn baby is maybe sleeping, who knows, depending on the day and when he wants to, but can't complain about anything. We're doing good here in Virginia. Yeah.
All right, so you're in Virginia and you have a newborn. Do you have any other children?
Yes, I have a son who is 6, a daughter who is 3, a wife that comes along with those children as well, which is always good. But yeah, beautiful family out here. We love it. My son's obsessed with baseball at the moment and the Yankees. So doing my father and his New York roots proud. My daughter is a Spitfire and will make sure that you know that she's in charge. Her favorite thing is to put her hand out and have me bow to her and say, "Your Majesty." So that's kind of my relationship dynamic with her. So, yeah, all good things. All good things. Raising strong children who hopefully one day will continue to carry the Hulett name strong.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I've interacted with your strong children. It's not been too long ago, a few months back.
Yeah.
And I will say that your Spitfire daughter captured my heart, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
very sweet.
Yeah, she's a Sour Patch, as we call her. So she will be sweet and then she'll be sour, or the other way around. So yeah, it's a joy. The joys of parenting for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that sweetness comes directly from you, and so
Yes.
Um,
As parenting does, all the good qualities come from you. The terrible ones come from your spouse or your partner,
That's right.
right? So yeah,
That's right.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah.
So we've caught up on where you're at today. How did you get here? Like where you come from?
Man, what a journey. Yeah. How did I get here? Sometimes I think about that myself. How did I end up in a coastal Virginia town when I was raised partly in upstate New York? So I was born upstate New York. My father is a pastor of a Assemblies of God church, as well as my grandfather. So I was born into ministry. And through that, we traveled all down the Eastern Coast, helping churches, taking on churches, lived in Florida for a little bit, lived in Amish, Pennsylvania. My brother-in-law is actually an ex-Amish. So that has brought about amazing conversations of, you don't know what this is, just things that you take culturally for granted that are so typical. You don't understand that. And then he has no idea what it is. So lived in Amish, Pennsylvania, and then through connections that my father had through the church that we were currently in at that time, I found out about this church in Virginia Beach that also had a kind of Bible college that they were promoting. And I said, I want to go there. I want to go to school there, learn about ministry and delve more into theology. And that is where I met you. I also met my beautiful wife. Got married to her 9 years ago, almost to the day of this recording, September 10th. And have made a life out here in Virginia, working, selling wonderful software to the government, investing and helping grow our local church, and trying to find a way to become the next C.S. Lewis of our generation, as every good Protestant wants to be, even though he was Anglican, right? So it makes sense.
There you go. So your desire to be the next C.S. Lewis, you like to write, and you're working
Yes.
on your own manuscripts. I'd love to. Well, let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about what you're writing, and then how Tolkien inspired you, and how you first encountered Tolkien.
Yeah. Yeah. So writing is a journey that I have learned through long conversations with you, and frantic, panic text messages in the middle of the night of how is this possible. It's something that feels like a never-ending journey of it's never good enough. So I'm writing stories of friendship and adventure, and the typical tropes that you would see in kind of all these fairy tales that shaped, I feel like, my generation, specifically of Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Chronicles of Narnia, and trying to say, hey, what would happen if we wrote a book that was in that same realm for the next generation to come, because it will be written. Who's it going to be written by? Why not me? So through that, starting to write manuscripts, finished my first one, and in the process of finishing my first one, I said, wow, I think I have a really much better idea than the one that I wrote, so let's move on and keep writing. So in the process of that now, and it's a journey, but it's fun. So
That's
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're a gifted writer, and I have no doubt that your days are in the future of
Yeah.
books on the shelves wherever we go.
Yeah, well, one day hopefully I'll be on the lower shelf underneath Tolkien and his friends. But I mean, Tolkien obviously was. I don't think there's any fantasy writer today who can say that they're not influenced by Tolkien somehow, right? I feel like he's the father of modern day fantasy, and I remember. Like it is there are a few memories I feel like as an adult that you have as a child that you can be like, I remember this. And I remember my first interaction with Tolkien like very clearly. I was asleep in my room in our house that we had in Florida, and my father loved to have like those Bose speakers and that surround sound in-house entertainment.
Yeah.
And one of our church members came over and was like talking to my dad, like, you have to watch these movies. They're called Lord of the Rings. My dad was not a fantasy guy at all. I'm like probably 7 years old at the time. Sends us to bed. Well, the TV and those speakers are right on the wall that I share with the living room. So I remember falling asleep, and all of a sudden I just hear like the cracks of Mount Doom shaking my bedroom, and I like run out into the living room, and I see like Sauron raising the ring from like the images of the Fellowship of the Ring from the prologue, and I'm like frightened, like what is going on? And my mom's like, send him to bed, and I go to bed. And the next morning I remember asking my dad, like, what were you watching? And he had watched it and was floored by it. He's like, we're watching this tomorrow. And I remember watching Fellowship of the Ring when I was 7 or 8 years old, right before Return of the King would have came out in theaters, and being terrified, so scared of
Yeah.
the ring race and the orcs, but for some reason being so captivated by this world that I have never thought to think of, obviously, as a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. And from there, it was just an avalanche of how do I consume more of this material. And I started reading The Hobbit, and I tried to read Lord of the Rings as an elementary school kid. Did not go well, but I tried. I
Yeah.
remember checking out the Silmarillion from the library and being like, what am I reading? This is not in the same language that I speak or have learned how to read. But that's really where it started. And as I grew into adulthood, I mean, it never left. It was just a love that I had, and I still have, and I get to share with my kids, and I still share with my father. And yeah, Tolkien is a special place in my heart, and his influences are profound.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Can't thank him enough.
That's quite a way to come into
Yes.
Tolkien.
Yeah. Yeah, not the normal way, I feel like, but yeah, trial by fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the question I have for you, if you
Yeah.
would, sir, to please tell us who you chose and initially why.
I chose the true king of Gondor, Aragorn, son of Arathorn. I chose him because I don't think it would have been possible for me not to choose Aragorn. When I was asked to do this, I did not think that he would still be available to choose from, just because he is such the perfect character. He's the perfect symbol of masculinity. I feel like he weaves in the themes that Tolkien beautifully writes into his stories of hope and restoration and humility. And he's low-hanging fruit, and it's there because it's has weight to it, right? The fruit is there because it's easy to grab, and I love Aragorn. I don't think there is a man who has delved into Tolkien, watched the films, read the books, that does not sometimes imagine himself being the ranger, king, soldier who is on the top of the walls of Helm's Deep fighting the Uruk-hai or charging off the boats into Pelennor Fields to save Minas Tirith. I don't think that exists. I don't think any man has not imagined himself in that role. I think he is such an amazing character, and he is so steadfast in who he is. And some people would say that, oh, he's too perfect of a character. But I think that that's what makes him such a great character to choose as Tolkien's best character, because he is the archetype of Christ-likeness, right? And Tolkien obviously being a Catholic, and The Lord of the Rings being a Catholic tale, as Tolkien would say himself. Why wouldn't you pick the person who is best exemplified as the Messiah? So yes, that's why I've gone with Aragorn. Yeah.
Well, I know that you use the word perfect to describe him, but we're going to ask you to explore what limitations does he have, and how does his story arc unfold in a way that reveals his humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there's so much to go through with Aragorn. There's what is known to the common reader, which is, he's the guy who gets the sword, who travels with the Fellowship, fights the bad guys, saves Merry and Pippin, defends Helm's Deep, frees mankind, has the great moment for Frodo, and charges into his death just for the chance of hope. But there is the humanity within him. It's his ability, I think, to recognize his duty amidst his different personas, I think really shows his humanity. And when he's Strider, he's doing the perhaps undesirable or unrecognized duty of defending people who don't even know they're being defended, doing things that I think he says when he's in Bree at a time that there's a fat man who is a mile's walk away from an encampment of orcs that I would charge headfirst into to defend him, that he could care less about me. I think that he fulfills his duty with being a healer, showing his humanity and caring for those who maybe haven't accepted him or have rejected him in the past. And also tempering his power and his ability to take his place as the king, but doing it when it is his time, having his patience. There's moments where before the story of the Lord of the Rings even happens, that he is, rather than charging into Gondor and claiming his throne, he is fighting alongside the people of Rohan and Gondor, defending their territories, as a character named Thorongil, not even using his real name, not claiming his authority, but going down to the level of the people that he would essentially be ruling, who he has the rightful ability to rule over. I think he deals with the struggles of understanding the original sin of his people, the original sin of his ancestors with the Isildur, fighting whether or not he's worthy enough to take that. But in the midst of his fear, he steps up into the courage to claim what he has to claim for the better of the world. And I think that is the call of every man, of every human, not just fictional characters. I think that it is our duty as humans to see what needs to be done and do what's right, even when it's hard. And I think that's something that Aragorn personifies amazingly.
Cool. So you bring up something that may not be familiar with everyone, those who might be just casual viewers of the movies. What is this original sin of which you speak?
I mean, I would say Isildur refusing to destroy the ring and accepting the ring is probably what Aragorn would view as his line's original sin, as someone who would watch the movies to get incredibly deep into it. The people of Numenor, rejecting what the gods essentially had given them. Al-Pharazôn, trying to build their way and get into Valinor. Things that the Rings of Power has done a great job of trying to show us. I'm being sarcastic. But
I've not watched it, so.
You're not missing anything. But, I think that original sin of trying to be almost God, essentially, right? Choosing power over humility. It's the words that I'm looking for specifically. I would say, rather than trying to dominate, rather than being given authority, claiming your authority through power, rather than claiming your authority through restoration and service.
I think there's a thing there where it's obvious, I think, and you can speak to this, with the way in which he comports himself in the beginning of the stories, that is a counterbalance to that grasping activity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's obviously the moments where in the movie specifically, and I'm a movie nerd, so I'm not an anti-Jackson like some Tolkien purists would be. Obviously, that's how I was introduced to this, so I love them. There's moments where he's talking with Arwen and Rivendell, then he said, I the same weakness flows through my veins. I'm not able to do this. What if I succumb to the ring? And he has those moments where he has the chances to do that, but he overcomes. And it's contrasted beautifully against his other man who's with him, Boromir, which I'm sure we can talk and get into some of the differences between how him and his friend Boromir exemplify things like hope and
Yeah. Well, I'll let you touch on that briefly. That he'll have his own episode, but
I know.
Go ahead.
But I think that Aragorn has many names, and his mother names him Estelle to hide him from Sauron. And Estelle is hope in Sindarin, one of Tolkien's languages. I believe it's Sindarin, one of Tolkien's languages. And apologies if I'm mispronouncing it. I never actually fully went through the Elven literacy course, even though I had many chances to learn Elvish. I never took it up. But Estelle is not only Aragorn's name, it's also like an Elvish philosophy that Tolkien obviously wrote into his stories, that there's a trust and a faith in something that is beyond us, like the creator of the universe, or as in Tolkien's world it'd be Eru Iluvatar, that his designs are good and that his will ultimately for his creation is good as well, despite the bad that may come. And Aragorn's trust is in this, not in swords or might. It's in that there is a greater power, the providence of God, guiding him along his path. Examples like when he's at Amon Hen at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring and Frodo's leaving, he, instead of chasing after Frodo as his protector, he says, you know what, this is probably the will of something greater. I will find out. I'm going to go after Merry and Pippin. Whereas Boromir is more, pragmatic. He trusts in the things that he may see, and he wants to wield the ring. That's his hope. His hope is placed in what he sees, not in what he does not see. And that's why when he's tempted, he will go for the ring. Whereas when Aragorn is tempted, he will not go for the ring because he knows where he can place his hope.
That makes sense. Tell me a couple of, I guess, monumental moments in both in the story arc itself and how Aragorn's role propels the narrative, but also for you as an impressionable young man that really resonate and inspired you.
Yeah, I mean, as an adult and a father now, when I see certain moments in the films as I watch them every year, because why not? Extended editions only. When he takes moments of courage amidst insurmountable odds, his virtue as a leader to not only lead the people, but to lead his people as one of them as well. I think there's a moment in Helm's Deep in the film specifically when Legolas and Aragorn are arguing, and Legolas is basically saying, look at them, they're terrible. These men don't even know how to fight. They're all going to die. And Aragorn says, then I'll die as one of them. He doesn't say I'll die with them. He says I will die as one of them. The ability of a leader to not only come alongside your people, but to fight and be a part of your people, getting in the muck with your people, the people that you lead. I think is powerful. He drives the narrative forward through his courage and his ability to understand his emotion and still move on, not to neglect his emotion, as some would say it's true masculinity to ignore your emotion and press forward, but his ability to recognize his emotion but then still do what is tasked of him. For example, when Gandalf dies, spoiler, in Moria, they flee, they leave Moria, they're on the cliffs, they're about to go into Lothlorien, and everyone is devastated. And there's a moment where Aragorn is really shaken by Gandalf's fall, but he tells them, hey, we have to move. We can't stay here. We have to leave. Like, even though he knows the moment, the situation, he still is able to lead in a moment of, amidst his emotions, he's able to say, this is awful, but there's still something that has to be done. We have to keep moving forward. I think that's such an incredible impact to me as a father, right? And raising children, leading people in my church, that there is a task that is far more important than the things that we may feel, even though the things that we feel are very, very real. Another scene, obviously, probably his most amazing speech that he gives in all of the movies, when he is at the Black Gate and he turns to his men and he says, the day may come where the strength of men fails. It's not this day. Today we will fight. Aragorn did not go there to win a battle like he did at Pelennor Fields. He went there to essentially die in hope that beyond him there would be a greater life for the people who would come after. And there's even something that you see in the books as well. After he's crowned king, he plants another tree, another white tree of Gondor that he will never have. He'll never be able to see. And it's the idea that a great man does not do things for himself in his own present age. He does things for the better of others in ages to come that he will never even experience. And as a father, again, knowing that what I'm doing will impact my children, but also potentially their children's children that I may never know, but the seeds that I plant now can change and completely change generations to come that I may not even see. I mean, he is, again, like I said earlier, he is, I think, the quintessential masculine archetype for any man to look at and be like, yeah, I want to be him. Yeah.
That's perfect, because I want to talk about the archetype.
Yeah.
And I'd love to, you've mentioned obviously Messiah, Christ-like, but also, so I'd love for you to touch on that and similarities there, but also if there are any other literary or mythological figures that come to mind as other similar archetypes in stories that people might be familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, King Arthur, right? That's obviously one that I think Tolkien would have drawn from, specifically being English and wanting to create a mythology for his people. I think he definitely pulled from King Arthur. There's the Nords, the Nordic myths that he read and was heavily influenced by, but I think also not just Christ. I think other biblical figures like Moses and Jeremiah, they protested their worthiness when they were called to lead. And that's something that Aragorn constantly is checking himself with. Am I actually good enough to do this? I think even King David and the failures that he may have made, still being a true and worthy king of Israel. But I don't think that there is much more of a stronger figure than Christ that Tolkien would have been able to pull from. I think he is. I think mainly though because Aragorn is such a fusion of myth and humanity, and that is what Christ truly is to the believer. He is the fusion of the divine and the human, and he's the combination of both. And I don't think you can get away from that when you look at Aragorn. And I think that's why some people would view him as someone that isn't able to be identified with on the surface. But as you dig deeper into a character, I think that's when you really can see, oh wow, yes, they've gone through the same struggles that I have, even if it's in a mythological world like Middle Earth. So
perfect. One of the things that stands out to me to distinguish Aragorn from the stories of Jesus in the Gospels, would be his relationship with Arwen, right?
Yeah.
There's no portrayal of Jesus in any context with a romance. And so I'm curious for you to explore that dynamic, how that furthers sort of that heroic ideal, as well as a potential model for relationships in your actual life and for the generations.
Yeah, I mean, Elrond tells Aragorn he can't marry Arwen until he becomes the king of Arnor. So there's that's kind of quite the task of saying, asking your future father-in-law, can I marry your daughter? And he says, not until you become king. So there's his relationship specifically is tied to his destiny. I think that's an interesting thing to delve into, and it's also tied very strongly with other characters in Tolkien's work, much familiar Beren and Luthien, and their story of an elf and a man falling in love, and the man going on a great quest to essentially earn the right to marry the woman that he loves. You know, Aragorn had to become something, not necessarily for Arwen to love him, because she saw who he was. She saw that he was she knew who he would be. She knew who he would become. But he had to go on that journey to become that man still, even when she saw that in him. And, you know, I think even in my own relationship with my wife, we met when I was 19 years old, and she was about to turn 24. So, you know, a bit of an age gap, maturity gap, a 19-year-old boy. I will use boy, not man. As you know, as you were my professor, so you recall, I'm sure. And a 24-year-old woman, she saw in me things that I could become, and she drove me to become that through her love. And I think it's the same in why I relate to Aragorn. Maybe I didn't have to become a king to you know, become the man that my wife always knew that I could be. But there is a beauty in being driven by the expectations of others to become a better person for not only yourself, but for those around you. And I think that's what drove Aragorn to an extent in the books, especially in the films. Arwen's not really a character really in the books. It's one of the knocks on Tolkien that he doesn't have enough females. But they're there. They're pretty cool too. But, you know, that drove Aragorn, right? Becoming the king so that he could marry the woman that he loves. And not only becoming the king in title, but becoming the king in who he was, I think is very, very important. So, yeah.
I want to take a little turn and have a little conversation culturally.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I want to do that is because just prior to jumping on this conversation with you, I saw a headline where the Atlantic magazine published, and I pulled up the title so I could read it and be accurate, but the title is "The Marriage Effect." Common narrative, subtitle, a common narrative has it that commitment and motherhood make women unhappy. New data suggests the opposite is true. And I don't want to have two guys talking about what it means to be a wife and a mother. That's not my point. My point is much more broad with respect to your generation in particular, and I would say mine, really. But Gen X, Millennial, our cohorts have experienced, by and large, a culture in which marriage was not elevated as the end goal, right? And there are certainly areas where it's continued to be lauded and all the rest, but relative to the broader arc of history, our groups had a much less supportive environment for pursuing marriage.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is because I'm curious about your take as you expressed. So we're going to leave aside the how happy mothers and wives are, and maybe I'll have someone come on and talk about that who is one.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear a little further amplification and inference from you with respect to the comments you made about the nature in which your wife's vision of who you could be, and the motivation, ambition, the call to rise that came about as a consequence of that relationship, and how that's portrayed in this book, but also how that affects men generally.
Yeah.
Is that a fair question to take on?
Yeah, I think that, to use a term from Lewis that maybe isn't exactly in the same vein, but I think carries the same idea, at least in my mind, is the weight of glory. There's a burden that there's a burden on everyone because there is an inherent task that we all have, I would believe. And I think that to I think to neglect that task leads to, I think, some of the issues we see in our society of anxiety, depression, loneliness, specifically, especially in men today. Loneliness, I feel like, is rampant. But I think that is because we refuse to bear the burden of the weight. And it's not until you choose to bear the burden of being something more for somebody else that you can truly become who you're supposed to be. If that falls in line, if that falls in line with what you're asking, and I think in
Yeah,
my
that
own,
that
yeah,
that gets at it. I just wanted you
yeah,
to speak to it from first person,
yeah.
having
I
lived it.
mean, my wife has expectations, um, and I can choose to live to. You're laughing because you know my wife very well. Uh,
Yeah, yes, sorry.
You're fine. It's true. You and I can choose to ignore them, or I can choose to attempt to live up to them and discover a stronger man in the process. And that's what I did. I mean, my wife met me as a boy and knows me now as a man. She saw me through that phase of my life of literally single man. Never really dated another woman before I met her. Married man, what that looks like of being a married man, into fatherhood, into having a career, into striving for goals and trying to become something, do things, provide for my family. She saw me through all of that, and knew who I could be, and encouraged me to become that. And that expectation did carry a weight of not wanting to let someone down, right? And there's the natural, I think, knee-jerk reaction of everyone of when you don't want to let someone down, you don't do it. The choice of not doing it so you don't let them down, or the choice of doing it and maybe letting them down but potentially succeeding as well.
Yeah,
And I think that for me personally, it was, do I become the man that she needs and sees, or do I live a comfortable life for myself and not grow, not challenge myself to be more than I am now? And the answer was easy. The process was hard,
yeah,
right? The
yeah.
answer is always easy. It's always easy to say, yes, I'll be better, but it's always hard to actually try to do it. Um, and I think that's what our generation needs is that's such a bold thing to say, that I'm speaking for the entirety of a generation. But I think we do need to bear our burdens for each other and become the people who we are around on a day-to-day basis, who rely on us, become who they need us to be, die to ourselves, right? And what we would want, because in truly dying to yourself, I think you really actually find your happiness in bringing yourself to other people, if that makes sense. And
It does.
that's where I found my happiness in my life, is not in searching for my own desires. It's never that is not when I'm the happiest. I'm the happiest when I am giving myself away for the better of my wife, the better of my children, the better of my community. That's when I'm the happiest, not when I'm focusing on my own self. So, yeah.
Good. And it's obvious that Aragorn
Yeah.
exemplifies that. I'm curious if you have any thoughts about the relationship between Aragorn and Arwen, within that context of, do you see anything in her that compels him to rise up, or is his character already sufficiently formed?
Hmm.
One of the questions I have about Aragorn's portrayal
Yeah.
is, where do you see the limitations and the flaws unveiled and then, overcome?
And what aspect do you mean?
We can go back to just generally at this
Yeah.
point. But yeah,
Like in relation to Arwen, or just in?
but any.
I mean, he's mortal. He can die. I think that that's something that can easily be overlooked, right? But he doesn't go to the Black Gate in Return of the King expecting to return. He goes to buy time so that the ring can be destroyed. I think that. So what was your question again? I want to make sure that I'm answering correctly.
Yeah, I just wanted to,
Yeah.
because we were talking about the nature of your personal relationship
Yeah. Yep.
and the call to young men
Yeah.
to have a vision of
Yeah.
nobility, courage, chivalry, to use old words, but maybe there's a renaissance underway of those.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious with respect to your thoughts on Aragorn's, the way in which he is presented to the
Yeah.
reader, to the viewer. Is there a sufficient struggle
Mm.
that
Yeah.
you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. I think that's the mistake that I'm gonna answer your question probably not in the way that you would want, and I think
I
it's
have no expectation.
well. I think that we as readers, and specifically, I'll call out my own personal faith, is we view the Messiah or the messianic figure or the rightful king in these stories, that we can't relate to them because of their almost seemingly non-existent struggle. But I think that shouldn't be something that makes us not relate. That should be something that encourages us and empowers us to become like that. Become someone who, in the midst of fear, chooses courage, because it's possible. These people who we see, like Aragorn in these stories, they are crafted on ideas that do exist. You can be courageous. You can be chivalrous. You can be noble. Even in a world that is awful, in a world that may be plunged in war or chaos, you still can be that, even if it's hard. I think that's important, and I think that, even not to go on a Christian pedestal, but the idea is Christ was human. Aragorn is human. Their struggles still existed, even though we see them overcome them. Their overcoming of their struggles does not mean that they did not have them. They just overcame them. And I think that should be an inspiration to us, not to say I can't relate, but to say, oh, they struggle and overcame. Maybe I can struggle and overcome as well. And I think that's when you get into the very surface. Oh, well, he's not a deep character. He's not deep enough, right? Oh, it's too easy for him. He's able to do everything. It's not hard. Well, no, he just overcame, and you don't like that he can overcome, but maybe you can't overcome. And I think really you need to flip that in reverse and say, oh, he overcame, I can overcome. That's how I would answer that, honestly. I think that the knock of maybe he doesn't struggle enough isn't that he doesn't. It's that he gets over it. And I think that's what men need to do in the midst of the chaos, is that they need to overcome. So, yeah.
Excellent. No, I appreciate always. That's why you're here, is to get your
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. I would love to explore Aragorn's relationship with the Hobbits,
Mhm.
and any of your
Yeah.
thoughts there, and the
Yeah.
beauty of those relationships.
It's an interesting one because I think you have to look at his relationship with the hobbits, because they always call him like Strider. That's how they are introduced to him, right? Strider. And I think to us, Strider is like cool. Strider is like the grungy man at the back of the bar, smoking a cigar, having a pint. That is not why he's called that. He's not called Strider because he's cool. He's called Strider because they think he's like, a drifter who comes and goes, scraggly man, probably not someone you should trust. But the hobbits do not view him like that. They view him as some guy who is like a protector and a restorer. And I think it's a really interesting idea of like how you view Strider. Do you view him as someone who protects and nurtures, redeems, cares for the world around him, which is what he was doing. Aragorn as Strider is protecting the north of Middle-earth from foes. Like, the Shire doesn't see anything dangerous because Aragorn and the Dunedain Rangers are protecting the Shire. So do you see him as protector, or do you see him as scoundrel? And I think his relationship to the hobbits in being this mysterious man who guides them on a journey and protects them, as opposed to the Brelanders, who see him as a, raucous mercenary, is really just another example of Tolkien taking the Christ-like archetype and shoving it on him and be like, here you go, this is him. Because that is the truth. How do we see authority in our lives? Do we see authority as someone who keeps us down, or someone who protects us, the ultimate authority? So, yeah.
That's
if
cool.
That answers your question.
One of the things that stands out to me is, again, drawing on the example of Christ.
Yeah.
I love portrayals of Jesus and these portrayals of Aragorn in which there is a playfulness that is revealed, and only is revealed by interacting with the hobbits or Jesus with the children in the Gospels. There's a openness to everyone and a meeting everyone where they're at. That is a really beautiful thing. I think that's probably my favorite thing with Aragorn's interaction with the hobbits, because I can't think of any other interactions that Aragorn has in which he shows that side of himself.
No, it's very true. And even when he's like, why are you stopping? And Pippin's like, oh, we haven't had breakfast yet. He's like, yeah, you did. He's like, no, we haven't. What about second breakfast, right? The classic lines there, and he tosses him an apple from the back. Even when Sam barges in to try to fight him with a frying pan, and he's like, yeah, you're pretty brave, huh? Nice, good on you, man. Like, good for you. I have a sword. I can cut your head off, probably. Yeah, there is that playfulness that is shown in the innocence when you're interacting with the innocent, right? And I think that's really how the hobbits approach him. They are innocent, right? They've as the famous line goes from the Fellowship of the Ring, if I take one step further, I'll be the furthest away from home I've ever been. And every step those hobbits take is a step they've never taken before. And I think that's why Aragorn is so playful with them, because there is that innocence to them, as you said. So it's always funny. But he is their protector. That's how he views them. He views Frodo. He is there to protect Frodo. He's there to protect the hobbits, and that's why his choice at Amon Hen at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring, when Frodo leaves, to not go after them and to choose to trust in the divine purposes, I think is really impactful too, because he views himself as the protector of these little ones, and rather than staying with his duty to protect Frodo, he goes to his duty to rescue Merry and Pippin. So yeah,
that's so cool. Are there any? Well, I guess I'll tell you what. Let's talk about the symbolic element of the sword,
Mm.
and take that wherever you like.
Mm. Hang on one second. I could. I'll probably offend a lot of real Tolkien purists by saying this quote when speaking on Aragorn. But I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love that which they defend. It's a tool, and Aragorn's journey and his life, rather than becoming the regal politician to go and claim his rightful throne, he becomes the grizzled soldier in the wilderness, and he uses his sword to protect and to ultimately redeem the world of Middle Earth. I think it's something that can be used as a tool for violence, is used, as a means of protection and redemption in the right facets. I think that even the true sword that he gets, right, his birthright of Andoril, it just shows it is his ability to take what is given to him in his hand and use it for good, where it could be used for evil, to conquer. He does not use it to conquer; he uses it to protect. And masculinity in general, a lot of things that would be considered toxic masculinity, a lot of the aspects of masculinity that would be viewed as toxic are, in my opinion, just true masculinity being used in the wrong way. And I think that strength and the ability to defend is the true virtue that comes from a man's strength, not a man's ability to take and conquer. So, as I think Tolkien would also believe.
Yeah, I think you're right on that point.
Yeah.
This is a lot of fun. I really appreciate you doing this. I have just two more questions, believe it or not. I'd love to hear your all-time favorite Aragorn moment, and then just
Okay. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
top three.
Okay. No, I had a joke to go with it, so I'll do a joke and then I'll do multiple. Yeah, we'll do multiple Aragorn
All right.
moments.
I'll tell you what. Go ahead and do that, and then we'll hit my last question.
Okay, so top Aragorn moments. There's one that does not come from Tolkien at all. It's from a show called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where the character Mac dresses up as Aragorn, but he says that he's dressed up as Vigil Morgenstein, which is neither the name of the character or the actor, which is the joke from that show. I think it's whenever I watch the movies, I cannot not look at Viggo Mortensen and think Vigil Morgenstein. The other top moment is when he kicks the helmet of the Uruk-hai. He actually broke his foot when he did that while he was acting, so his scream was actually real pain. He's a really dedicated actor, Viggo Mortensen. But gosh, I think, man, to really choose my favorite Aragorn moment has to be when this is a surprise, when they're at the Black Gate and the mouth of Sauron comes out. And I think this fails in the movies, but in the books it's so much more powerful when you're reading and you see the mouth of Sauron coming out, showing the Mithril Mail saying, Frodo's dead, I have the ring, you've lost. And in the midst of that, and he rejects it. He said, no, this is not true. And even in a better sense in the movies, because it's such a visual moment, he takes his sword and he cuts the mouth of Sauron's head off. He said, I will not believe this. I do not. And he rides back to his men and he gets them ready for battle. And he gives the infamous speech of, an hour of shattered shields and wolves as the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight, and choosing in the midst of loss, of odds that are not in your favor, to stand up to evil and do what is right so that good can ultimately prevail, is the best Aragorn moment. And how dare you make me choose one that's so difficult to do?
The spirit of Sauron lives within me. I think that's a beautiful expression, though, Robert, because may we always have such hopefulness, right? Like, may we always respond to that with just that glimmer of belief, and that prevents us from sliding into the cynic's darkness, from which it's very difficult to escape.
And that is I think Tolkien's philosophy on destroying evil is evil will not be destroyed. Evil cannot be destroyed without the intervention of an ultimate higher power, but it is kept at bay by the moral good of people on a day-to-day basis. And that's what you see in the destruction of the ring. Frodo does not destroy the ring. Gollum bites it off his hand and he trips. And that is Tolkien saying we can't destroy evil unless there's an intervention of such seemingly small, implications of someone tripping and falling, and that is how evil is truly destroyed, by the intervention of a higher being. But it is up to us to bear the burden to the point where it can be destroyed. That's our task, and that's what Aragorn, I think, bears so beautifully.
Yeah, the moral courage is our call.
Yeah.
So, round us off. It's already the end. Hard to believe.
Can't believe it.
What takeaways from Aragorn would you add or encapsulate, as well, once again, kind of speaking to the generations to come, which you touched on as a father?
Yeah, that the highest ideal is achievable by choosing to daily choose to be and live up to that highest ideal. That there are people around you who need you to live up to that ideal. And while that can seem like such a daunting task because you know who you are, you can still accomplish that through the power that lives within you, and accomplish that ideal and become that person who you are meant to be. And I think that as a father, as someone who may be listening to this, who knows when or how many years down the line, that there is a ideal, and that there is an image of men specifically, that is imprinted on each and every one of us, and you have the ability to do that and be that. And even if it may seem like it's only possible from a mythical character, those ideals exist because they are achievable, not because they're inachievable. And if that is who you want to be, you strive for that. And if you fail, you do not give up. You try again. And that's what I would leave with Aragorn. He knew who he was. He knew the potential failings he could have, given his past, given his lineage. And rather than using that as an excuse to not be who he was supposed to be, he chose to become the man that he was supposed to be. And through that, he changed Middle-earth forever. So
thank you so much, Robert Hulett.
Yeah. Thank
what
you.
A treat.
Yeah.
Today's episode of The Plunge is sponsored, of course, by The Riddle of Strider, from the Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. All that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wonder are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken. A light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be the blade that was broken. The crownless again shall be king. The Riddle of Strider. Thank you for sponsoring today's episode of The Plunge.